Hello, everyone. I'm Kim Rowell, and I am delighted to be hosting this next session at KindFest 2023. Phillip Lymbery is Chief Executive of the international farm animal welfare organisation Compassion in World Farming. He has played a leading role in many major animal welfare reforms, including Europe-wide bans on veal crates for calves and barren battery cages for laying hens. He was appointed an ambassadorial champion for the UN Food Systems Summit in 2021. He has also spearheaded Compassion in World Farming's engagement with more than 1,000 food companies worldwide, leading to genuine improvements in the lives of more than 2 billion farm animals every year. As an author, his first book, Farmageddon, was listed as a Book of the Year by The Times. His second book, Dead Zone, was selected as a must-read by the Daily Mail. And his most recent book, 60 Harvests Left. It's not easy to say. How to Reach a Nature-Friendly Future. It was published last year to much critical acclaim. Philip, it is so lovely to see you again.
It's such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me along.
Well, now our theme for KindFest this year, I know we spoke last year, but this year is all about the currency of kindness to address the cost of living situation. And we've broken it down into 3 virtual streams, and we've labeled them community, change makers, and legacy. But it feels very much to me that the work that you and your organization does provides somewhat of like an umbrella over all 3 things. Would you agree with that?
Yes, of course. The first thing that that I would say on this is that kindness brings hope. And as we go into ever more challenging times with the climate crisis, the collapse of nature, we just come out of a pandemic. We have a war in Europe. Hope is what we all need. And kindness, I think, helps us to find a way forward. And it really does help us with things like the cost of living crisis, at least in terms of how to push on and how to create a better world. Because the truth is that there is more food in the world than is needed to feed everyone. But the problem is we feed so much of it to factory farmed animals. Enough food to feed 4 billion people, that's half of humanity alive today, gets fed to factory farmed animals. And in doing so, that is good, wholesome crops, corn and wheat and soya. And what that actually does is pushes up food prices. So it reduces the food supply and pushes up food prices. So what we now need is for governments to recognise that the cost of living crisis today and in the future isn't something that is like the weather that we can't change. It absolutely is something that we can change. And one of the fundamental things we can do is reconnect with kindness and treat animals decently and move away from factory farming.
And that point of treating animals decently, I know from our last conversation, you're the proud owner of a rescue dog and chickens. Is that still the case?
Well, I wish I could say that was the case, because our dear Duke passed away over the Rainbow Bridge just 3 weeks ago. So it really is.
So sorry to hear that.
It's a time when we're just coming to terms with losing him. He was 11 3/4, a 35-kilo bundle of fluff and affection, the most kind-hearted soul I have ever met. And so we're bereft without him.
I don't want to dwell on your grief, but I was recollecting in our previous conversation the story you told me about him coming across a cow and the affinity they had, the kindness there as well. And it does seem like it's instinctual in animalistic behaviour. Do you think there's still things that we can learn from animals when it comes to kindness and compassion?
Oh, totally. And it is instinctive if we let it. I do believe that dogs, dangerous dogs, for example, remember Duke was the DNA profile came back as a mix of Lottie, Staffy and Alsatian. Right. Yet he was the most gentle dog. He would sit with our rescue hens that you rightfully recollect. And yes, when he met cows, both he and the cows would approach each other with purpose, and they would lick each other's noses. They would bond in that age-old way for animals of exchanging saliva. It gave them reassurance. It gave them that feeling of kinship. And every time I saw that happen, the species barrier between cow and dog blurred. They were fellow creatures standing together in this wonderful world of ours.
That's so lovely. I love that story so much. But your most recent book, I wanted to speak to you a bit more about that. 60 Harvests Left. The title takes inspiration from the UN's warning that we have literally just 60 years before the soils are useless, and less now, obviously, because it published last year. But what has the impact and the response been like to your book?
Well, the book has caused a good debate, and that's the right thing. But I think what also it's done is brought clarity that time is running out, that timelines for changing things are shortening all of the time. And what I was able to demonstrate through the book, through the statistics in it, was that the industrial farming of animals, factory farming, is not only the biggest cause of animal cruelty on the planet, it's integral to driving climate change. It's the major driver of wildlife declines, and it's the thing which is undermining the very thing that we need for a future for humanity, and that is the soil. Because without soil, we have no food. No soil, no food, game over. It's as simple as that. So what I wanted to do with the book is to use it to get behind the momentum, for example, at the UN level, for transformation of the food system. I'm pleased to say that in the last couple of years, I was involved as an ambassadorial champion for the UN Food Systems Summit 2 years ago. And what that summit did was it brought in this word transformation and sat it beside the food system. Now what we need to do is to work with governments, corporates, the finance sector, and others to show them what that transformation means. Now, we talked about hope at the beginning, and given all that I've just said, the bad things about factory farming, the need for that food system transformation, what gives me hope with timeline shortening? Well, what gives me hope is the fact that there are beautiful, life-affirming, compassionate solutions at hand that can help us to transform the food system in a way which will enhance the wonder of the world, create a future for our children, and make sure that animals, whether farmed or wild, can not just have a place, but can thrive as part of our rich ecosystem.
I love the way that you reframe it towards hope, because the outlook, I work in news, you know, and it can be so bleak and everything is a crisis, and it sounds like we're on the precipice of something truly disastrous. But not to dwell too much on the negative, but the quote that I've heard from you that has most resonated was when you said, "We have mortgaged the future without an ability to pay." And that was one of my massive takeaways from having read your work and clearly spoken to you as well. And that's about the efforts we all need to make, and what you were just speaking to about the need to strive to get our food systems within planetary sustainability. I don't know if there's more that you can say, or if you can speak more towards that, and maybe with the vision of hope, of the positivity that we can glean out of that.
Oh, totally, Kim. The fact is that, yes, we are mortgaging the future without an ability to pay. That's what we've done with factory farming and the way that we go on. But so what do we need to do? Actually, we need to put back into our metaphoric bank account. We need to put back into nature's bank account. And the great way of doing that is by putting kindness at the center of all we do, not least the food system and the way that we treat animals. How do we put back into that capital account, that natural capital account? Well, by getting animals out of factory farms where they're confined and fed grain, which causes so much waste and pushes up food prices. Get them out of those factory farms, put them back on the land as part of mixed rotational systems where they can enjoy fresh air and sunshine. They can flap their wings, stretch their legs and run, jump, and all the other things that they want to do. And at the same time, what that will help do is replenish the soil. It will bring back the richness that should be in the soil, because in every patch of healthy soil, the size of a football pitch, roughly speaking, there should be 4 million worms, up to 4 million worms, and 13,000 species of life. And if you were to decant all of that and weigh them together, they would weigh 5 tons. That's the size of an elephant. So what I say is, let's put back in nature's bank account by rewilding the soil, by giving animals the right to roam on our farmland. And in so doing, we bring back the elephant's weight of biodiversity that should be under every football pitch patch of healthy soil. That is a way that we can restore the balance, create the hope, and create a much more beautiful world than we have right now.
Your passion is literally infectious and makes me smile, and the message is so powerful. And what you were saying there made me recollect a story about they were putting sheep back onto Hampstead Heath. It's that kind of thing, isn't it? It's about maybe leaning back into more old-fashioned ways of doing things because it works. And like you say, it cultivates the soil, and it's all part of this massive fabric of connectivity between nature and animals and the way that we should be living.
Kim, you're so right. The only word that I would change there is, or the term is old-fashioned. I would say it's common sense. It's common sense and futuristic. It's what we will need to do, because let's be true to the facts. Once you've immersed yourself in the data, as I have, then it's hard to see humanity making it past the end of the 21st century. That's the reality. We are facing a stark choice. The choice is extinction for ourselves and for other species, or regeneration. Now, the great thing about that choice is that regeneration is this putting animals back so they can roam on farmland, rewilding the soil, placing kindness at the center. It also involves reducing the amount of meat and dairy that we eat. And we can all get involved by seizing the power of our plate, putting kindness at the center of every menu. So eating more plants, less and better meat and dairy, making sure that any meat and dairy we have does come from that regenerative, nature restoring kind of farming, so pasture fed, free range, or organic. So in this way, rather than old fashioned, I would say this is futuristic. This is the choice that should sell at every election, because really we have no choice.
The time is now. There's no plan B for the planet, really, is there? And I know personally, I've recently done carbon literacy training, and I thought I was actually pretty up to speed with what that entailed and what it meant. And the responsibility for what we buy, what we eat, what we waste, and how to manage that in a time poor, attention deficient society. Also, we're talking about the cost of living. How can you afford to eat like locally sourced produce over, you know, stuff that you can buy in the big supermarkets at a fraction of the price? Do you have any guidance or any insights as to an effective way to do that for people that might be struggling?
It is difficult, of course it is. If you don't have enough money, or you don't have enough to eat, then you have to do what you have to. But ultimately, I think what I would say to people is that trying to buy fresh ingredients and raw ingredients and cooking that way can produce really healthy food on a budget. And I think if people are eating meat and dairy, which of course many people do, is to eat less of that. And to trade up to have better meat, Because remember that better meat is not only better for the animals if it comes from pasture-fed or free range, it's better for our families too. Compared with factory farmed produce, it will be lower in saturated fat, higher in omega-3s and other health-giving nutrients. So it may cost a little bit more, but actually you get more nutritional benefit from it. So those would be my advices, is and to shop around. But I think my main message on this is to politicians who seem to think that the cost of living crisis is something, as I say, it's like the weather. We can't do anything about it, can we? Well, and when I hear politicians or policy makers from any persuasion talking about we need factory farming to feed the poor, to feed the hungry, that's what they say. It makes me so mad. Because what kind of world, Kim, are we in where we expect people on low incomes to have to feed their children on poor quality factory farmed food? What kind of world is that? What kind of world? Not the kind of world that is putting kindness and compassion and respect at the center of it. So how do we get around that? Well, what is absolutely central to kindness, compassion, and respect for all living beings is to make decent food a basic human right, not something which you have to be able to afford, but something for everyone. It's that simple.
You're so inspiring, and I could talk to you all day, but I have one final question, thankfully, maybe for you. My magic wand question, I asked this last time. If you had a magic wand and you could make one kind wish, last time you reflected that it would be to end factory farming, obviously. Is it still that? Or as Fairy Phillip, Wizard Phillip, do you have a different wish?
Well, that wish remains that we would end factory farming. But I think for the purposes of having a different wish, I would say, let's put kindness at the center of all we do, genuinely. That would be my wish. And to have kindness in leadership, which I would define in simple terms as being about patience and empathy and empowerment and kindness in our relationship to each other and to all animals. If we can put kindness at the center of things genuinely, what I tried to show through the many hopeful passages in 60 Harvests Left is that kindness is the way to recreating the future, to move us away from this current moment where it looks like our children's future could be going down the pan. So kindness, and thereby creating a better future, a decent future for our children and for all animals, whether farmed or wild. That's
wonderful. Thank you, Philip. I really think you should read bedtime stories. Your voice is so calming and wonderful. Anyway, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for. Philip, you have been wonderful as always. Thank you so much for your time. It's been wonderful speaking with you. And thank you to everyone who's helped us to organise KindFest this year. A remarkable group of volunteers have lovingly created this event for you, and together we call ourselves Team Kind. And you can find out more and get involved via the website, where you can also find more about Philip's work and his company and organisation and all of the initiatives that they are currently running. Today's festival, the rest of it, is packed full of amazing speakers, artists and musicians. So please do stay tuned for more brilliant content coming your way.